You are live on Channel 8 and YouTube.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the April Fool's Day meeting of Templeton Advisory Committee, April 1st. I know Deb's going to be joining us shortly, I believe. We can start by calling the meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. You with us, Deb?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. Amy, are you up there with us? Just so we know.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, excellent. And as I told the others, Tony is unable to make it this evening. So we'll start by approval of the meeting minutes. The meeting minutes were sent out for the March 4th meeting. Does anyone have any questions, comments, concerns with the minutes?
Well, the only thing I would have liked to seen is the actual part where we talked about the bylaw is actually put down that bylaw and address it there that we had talked about. I can't remember which line it was now because I don't have the budget. I mean the minutes in front of me, Deb. I think I did state the actual Mass General law that we brought up.
I can go back and let's see, so March 4th. So I'm gonna pull them up really quick and just see.
I got them here in front of me. What were you section you talking about, Will?
It's the one we talk about, the Mass General law, and I can't remember which section of the minutes it was on. And all I'm just saying is that it would be good to put the actual Mass General law instead of saying we talked about the Mass General law and then didn't have anything on there. That way, when people look at the minutes, they actually see the Mass General law that we're talking about. That's the main thing that I was trying to get to.
Okay. CPC funding. Okay.
Okay, so you mean in section, I think it's section F he's talking about, Deb.
Okay. Under old business.
I think under new business,
Under new business. Okay. Section.
it says we'll discuss the Mass state law. I think that you're looking to have what state law it was in there, Will?
Off the top of my head, I can't remember. It was either 115 or 185, certain section.
But that's where you're looking to have it inserted, though, right?
Yeah, it just put that in there, and that way there people will know when we talk Mass General law what the Mass General law is. So if they have any questions, they can end up going and look at it.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I still have to do. I still want to write up the March 18th notes. So if you want to hold on these, I'll add the Mass state law there. I'll go back and just watch the discussion real quick and then add that. And then I'll send them both out and we can approve them next time if that's okay with everybody.
Yep, that's fine with me. Unless anyone has an objection to that.
Do you need a motion on that, Mr. Chairman?
I don't think so. We're just not going to approve them. We're going to move over it at this point. If you want to make a motion, we'll go ahead and we can do it that way.
Okay, I'll make a motion to table the minutes from the 4th until the next meeting until they're corrected.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, motion's made and seconded. Any other discussion on the minutes? Was there anything else anyone else had to change? Was that the only thing? Just so Deb doesn't have to do it a couple times.
Yep, I'm good.
Okay. Do a roll call vote. Bev?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Will?
Yes, and thank you, Deb.
You're welcome.
Deb?
So I wasn't there. Can I vote yes on this?
You can just pass on it. We can, if you want. If you want
Okay,
to.
I'll abstain.
And I'm a yes. So we'll get both of those for the next meeting. We'll take care of that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Old business. We got committee updates. I think, Amy, I think you were having a meeting before this one with your committee, if I'm correct.
Yeah, we had our meeting last week. I haven't had a chance to look at she usually sends like a rough draft of notes. But we're just continuing chipping away at that document, that regional agreement document. So there was a little bit more discussion around the dollar amount. I don't know if you all recall, but in town currently, any repairs to the building or any physical needs that a school building has goes to the district if it's $5,000 or less. And if it's more than that, it's the responsibility of the town in which the building resides. Because all of the school buildings are now physically in Templeton, this really does only apply to the Templeton Center, the elementary school, because the other building, the middle high school, belongs to the district. So there was more discussion around that, and nothing's going to be final. Nothing will be final until the school committee makes that final acceptance, and then it has to go through both towns and Board of Selectmen and all that. So we're really just continuing discussions on this process.
Amy, were they receptive to changing that number higher or not?
It really depends on who's leading the discussion and who's sort of chiming in. We're definitely not of one agreement on that at this point, because we can all see both sides of the argument. Nobody wants to saddle the town, any town, with a big burden to repair, I don't know, whatever it is. Let's say they need a new driveway and it's going to be $30,000. Nobody wants to saddle a town with that, but neither do they want to see the school have to pull from other necessary funding or see the district have to suffer in some other way. So it really is we feel like it's sort of a catch-22, but again, this is why we're having these ongoing discussions. So I'm sure we'll get it to a workable place where I know that me personally, I don't want to put something forward if I really think the towns are going to reject it or the school committee is going to reject it. That would be pointless. All of our work would be for nothing. So, we're constantly getting more information and we revisit everything we've talked about already. I feel like we revisit every meeting. So it's good. We're constantly trying to get clear on it.
Yeah, it's kind of a sticky wicket because the only school buildings are the Templeton buildings. Phillipston doesn't have one. So,
yes,
I mean,
they are very clear on that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how best that they can handle that, because we've boxed ourselves in with only having one town with one building here that would come under having to take and get repairs.
Yeah, well, like I say, we keep getting more information, and it's definitely worthwhile to give this some real thought and to hear everyone's input on the matter. The Phillipston Board of Selectmen, of course, are involved, have wonderful input, their FinCom, their residents. So that's really, we're just listening to everyone all together. And that's why it takes some time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amy.
Sure thing.
Does anyone have anything else as far as any committee updates? I think that's the only active committee we have.
Just a comment, Mr. Chairman. It doesn't, from what I can see, I don't think you're going to get any updates from Tony on looking for an accountant, because in the budget it doesn't. They have just a part-time accountant throughout the year, and it looks like they've already decided that they're not going to go out and fill that position. I don't know when, but that's what it appears.
Yeah, I agree. They will. pretty much as far as committee wise, I think Amy's going to have the only active one at this point. Going forward, they seem to keep having their productive meetings, which is good. And, it's good for us to get the updates from her because it's informative for us. So
It's a shame that the selectmen don't address that and go forward with trying to fill up that position with somebody, but it is what it is.
anyone have anything else on committees? Okay.
What I was gonna say, I have some strong feeling about our need for a person in that position, a full-time accountant. We have had nothing but trouble in the past because we didn't have certified people. We can't continue to do that. They can duck all they want. No one's going to take that job unless we have a company come in and sit down and do a good, go through the whole book deal and know where we stand financially, because I don't trust our numbers at all. And we need to face it, either face it now or face it down the road. And the further we go down the road, the harder it's going to be. That's my opinion. They're doing the town a very big disservice by having just a part-time person that isn't even in the state. And it has nothing to do with Kelly. Kelly and I get along. It has nothing to do with her. It's the fact that the town's financial problems haven't improved. And when you have the beginning balance, the ending balance of one year and the beginning balance of the next year, and they're not the same, that gives me a problem. That gives me heartburn.
It's going to be kind of a sticky thing too at the annual town meeting because the accountant's always at the meeting. At the
I think she might be actually. I know that she's expressed that she'd be back and forth a number of times.
Oh, okay.
For important things like that. I don't know exactly when, so we can. Tony said he'll be making the next meeting, so we'll see if he's had any change in things or what their thought process was. I know there is a part-time person, I believe, in the office, as well as her doing. I want to call it consulting, I guess, or however what they were calling it. So they are both still working on things, I believe. And I'm pretty sure that come time for the town meeting wise, that they should be in full swing with how they're doing it, I think. Hopefully. All right, next up on new business, we got the discuss the FY22 budget and possible budget adoption. I'd sent out to you guys and forwarded along. I know Michael Curry had sent it out. The budget, the due outs that had come from the meeting, as well as Adam had sent out his list of the final budget documents that went to the budget overview, which does show some of the changes things that he did on the back of changes he made to the worksheets for some of those due outs. Not sure how you want to go about it. I know we had quite a lengthy discussion there at the workshop as far as budget items line by line. Kind of open it up and see how everyone wants to approach with the budget wise. Obviously, we're still going to have our final warrant votes at the annual town meeting. At the pre-town, when we do our pre-town meeting with the warrant articles, once we get the actual signed copy. But how we'd like to go forward with the budget discussion, I'm open to suggestions at this point.
Well, I would like to go through the budget to some extent. There are issues still that people have questions about, and we should discuss them. Oops.
So what if we start with Bev, on that, what if we start with going down the, just with the departments, and then if there's a question amongst that department, would that suffice with that? And then if there's no questions on it, we can continue on to the next department?
Yeah, we could do that. Anybody else got any ideas?
I don't know, Bev.
You don't know, Bev?
No, I'm not
Bev?
sure. No, I do have an idea on this. And you know, I don't know how the rest of the committee's going to feel about it. But I do think that not in spite of the budget meeting that we had, but for the benefit of, let's say, the taxpayer, and hopefully to give them more information, I thought it might be a good idea for us to go back through and just discuss even the areas that, you know, we're actually fine with, but that we can look at for budgetary concerns in the future. I think it's a worthwhile cause, and I'd personally like to spend some time on that. Like I had mentioned with the school, I think, you know, that budget and any communication we can get along with them over the course, you know, of the next year would be highly advantageous also. But, you know, right now with the budget in front of us, I think it would be a good time to go through it. We could do it in a number of ways, but let's see how others feel first. Thanks.
Yep.
My only thought was that in looking at the budget documents per se, I see issues on this budget, and we really didn't get any type of resolution. We talked about stuff, we brought stuff up, and there was nothing that was definitive is in my eyes as to this budget and having it per se. The selectmen had a vote. If you look at their vote, there's a lot of, I don't know what you could, it wasn't, they weren't unanimous, and it seemed to me that there's even selectmen on there that still have apprehensions about this budget, period. That's concerning to me as a member of this committee, as well as the citizen and the taxpayer. I mean, I look back at last year versus this year, and we're $400,000 more in this year's budget than last year. I had a maybe a wrong notion, but my understanding was that it was going to be level funded. To me, level funded was level funded against last year, and that's $400,000 more. And there was over $300,000, almost $400,000 left over at the end of the year last year in last year's budget. So I'm just at my wits' end and trying to understand why we would end up wanting to end up going ahead with this budget.
Can I say something?
Sure, go ahead, Bev.
They didn't call it level funded. They called it level serviced. So there's a fine line. I guess the fine line is that the services stay the same. It's not level funded.
Well, even with the budget that we had last year, we were funding the services. So that terminology is,
I never heard it before.
yeah.
Well, there are increased costs on some of the things, even on some end of it, that we do have a tough time to control. Some of the retirement ends, some of the insurance ends, and I think that's what he's looking at towards level services. We're not laying people off. We're not, bringing people in. We're trying to, move forward with keeping the services the same. But there are, I think, constant things that do change on a budget, that even though you're not saying, okay, go up 3% on everything, you may be saying that, just keep services the same in your department and move forward, and where does it bring us? Because even like some of your departments that may have supply costs may have gone up. I know highway, I think parts and maintenance stuff, prices have really started to really go up with trying to get available parts. So some of these things are, although the service is still level, we still need to service, 45 cars or whatever they have. They may be figuring that it's going to cost them a little bit more to service these vehicles. Just my 2 cents on that.
I'm perplexed just looking at our budget per se. We ended up allocating $255 for putting the pre-town meeting notice for the annual town meeting and the special town meeting at $85. And that there's more than enough to take and end up handling 3. But for some reason, and I have no idea why, he ended up actually adding $200 to our budget. Why? Is this to take and end up making the budget figures come out right? I don't know. And I see that in other departments. In the department asked for a certain amount, and they gave them more. Why?
Maybe he foresaw on something like that he expects some type of a extra meeting or something, possibly. I don't, without actually asking him that question, I wouldn't know.
$5 or $10 or $25? How does that work out for a department? Of course, there was more also in other departments too, but that's.
So how do we want to proceed with going through the budget discussion?
Well, I would do what Bob had suggested.
Okay. Anybody else have any input on that?
So I don't necessarily, I don't know how much time, because how many meetings we're really going to be able to have, because we have to have the pre-town meeting and everything before town meeting. But I mean, I kind of liked, Tom, your idea of going through it department by department, so that it's not necessarily, and then you can bring up, all right, let's focus on this department. Is there something like Will's saying where they're adding money, and why is that? Or like Bob's saying, hey, this is one that we really need to focus on for the future. But if we break it down by department, I think that's going to be, I guess, I don't know, not as many bites if we're going through it line by line, if that makes sense. So we'd be able to kind of tackle it, because I don't think we need to go through it line by line. But if we're breaking down by department, I think it's a little easier. If that's what
Chairman,
people want to do.
sorry.
So go ahead, Bob.
I thought you were all done, Deb. I'm sorry. Go right ahead.
No, I'm good. Go ahead.
Okay. I was just going to say, yeah, that was my, let's say, follow-up after found out how people thought about it. I was just going to mention one of the ideas is it's very similar to what's just happening here. That I had come up with was to do something like that, like to almost like give us homework assignments between now and the next meeting. Okay. We'll look at, let's say take the largest departments, or the ones that have the most detail in them for the budget purposes, like DPW, police, fire, because they have the capital along with them and they usually encumber the most money. We took those, looked at those, and threw them into a meeting, whether it be putting on an additional meeting, let's say next week, or and then splitting it into 2 different occasions, that and our next scheduled business meeting, we could follow up with the rest of the committees, was my kind of thought. But they, some of the departments aren't going to take a whole lot of time with any discussion, if any, probably. But some departments, I think there's, good discussions to be had. If not for now, for direction. as far as funding. Just, thoughts. But it was along the same thing that Deb and Tom were coming to, just in the discussion, same basic thought. That's it. Thank you.
So basically what I'm hearing, unless someone has something else, if we can go down, basically I know in the page 16 on the budget book, there's listed by department in that. And if we kind of run right down those departments, if someone's got an issue with, or something that they want to go through on that department, we can look into it. And if it looks like it's going to be a lengthy issue, we can review it if you want at home. I know we've had the books for quite a while. I'm not sure how we want to. I know we got 3 meetings scheduled this month. We do have a third Thursday this month. I'm not sure how that falls in. I wanted to talk about it coming up after this on the potentially setting when we're looking to have the pre-town meeting. Just to give ourselves an idea to keep our timeline in check and how we want to do it. So.
Just to follow up on that, Tom,
Yep.
I did check, and if we did need an extra meeting next week, I believe Tuesday is the best day for space and also for TCTV, if I'm not mistaken. Just for thought on that, if that was like, I personally didn't think we'd, let's say decide on it and jump on it tonight, but things are rolling.
Well, let's see where we get with what we're going through it and see if there are. We may be surprised. There may not be as many things as we expect, and there may be all our questions could be in one department, and it may not take us as or a few departments. So let's kind of head down that, and we'll see where that takes us. We can always come back to that at the end and decide how we want to move forward with it. All right, first department on the list is select board. Anyone have anything they want to discuss? Looking at the select board numbers that they're putting forward.
Truly, yes.
Okay. What was it you wanted to discuss, Bob?
Same issue as before. Basically, it falls into town hall raises while using one-time funds above the, let's say, cost of living. I just have a hard time with it.
So
Yeah,
what,
I think-
which line item are you talking about on the budget on that?
Which what?
Which line
It's a
item are you
stipend.
talking
There
about in
was
there
a
on that?
stipend. It was removed. One of them, but there's two employees that I'm aware of. I'm just any employees. It's just basically we have control over some. We don't have control over the contracted. So the contracted, you can't do anything with necessarily. But on let's say non-contracted employee, I feel while using one-time funds during a pandemic, a cost of living increase would be justified. More than that is probably going to come back to haunt you. Just my thoughts.
Yeah, I think the figure that came up was that somebody getting a 13% raise and then dropping a big bunch of money in their salary seemed to me as counterproductive. all the other employees, number one. And number two, you don't end up giving large amount of raises out during a pandemic per se, when everybody's struggling, and we know that there's people out there struggling. Can you imagine how somebody feels that if they heard that there was a 13% raise given to an employee, and they're getting either nothing or they got unemployed? That's somebody's not going to somebody's it may they may not even come to town meeting, but they're going to be very critical of town government if we continue to do this type of thing. So I mean, that's I tried to take it, end up coming up with a compromise and put it into some type of training if the person needs to get some training, rather than put it into a salary. That's just my thoughts.
Can I say something?
Do we also know that the person isn't having more job duties added to their plate also?
Well, I had that discussion with the TA, and every job description that I ever had, and I asked that question, and as required. And if there's stuff that's required, then that's part of the job description, and that's kind of the feeling that I got from talking with him. So I mean, that's the feeling I got from him.
Go ahead, Bev.
We have, last I heard, we had 1,000 people that did not pay excise tax. That was due. Well, if you don't pay a bill, it's usually because you don't have any money. And I have no idea how many people are not working in this town, but I know the food pantries have been extremely busy. And I don't think anybody wants to go to a food pantry unless they have to. I think as much as I love all our town workers, I cannot, in good justification, see giving them a huge increase during a pandemic. I look back in our history, and in 1991, we had a 5.1% loss in state aid. That didn't stop. In 2001, we got hit again. When this happens, it doesn't just hit 1 year. We lost state aid in 2001 and 2002, 2003, we laid people off again. We were warned way back in 1991. Our advisory board chairman warned us about using one-time fund money to float the boat. And if we do this, it's going to catch up with us, because if that one-time money, we can fund something this year with it, but when next year comes, where's that money coming from? You know, Bob was right when he talked about the marijuana places and the elderly housing in Baldwinville. But that money is not going to show up for a few years. And if we're not cautious now, we're going to pay the piper down the road. I would rather have our people work, have a wage, have all their benefits, and not get laid off 2 or 3 times. We have had financial problems since really the 90s, the 2000s, and we keep doing the same thing over and over. We never learn a lesson. I agree. I can see a cost of living increase, but in this time, and these were just times when state aid was low. And we may get money from the federal government, but after Boston gets their chunk of it and every other city gets their chunk, and then I'm not sure what we can use it for. But even those are one-time funds. They're nothing that you can build on. So I'm the most liberal person in the world in some ways, I admit it. But when it comes to finances and the way the town's run, I agree with Bob. I agree with Will. Because we've been there and we've done it. We haven't learned.
Yeah, I'm concerned because I remember being in the private sector and there was a couple bad years and the raises, and basically, there were no raises. The company that I ended up working for thought it was best to maintain employees rather than give raises and having to end up not seeing their way through it for a while and then having to lay people off. It was better to end up maintaining salaries at a certain rate and keep people employed versus giving raises that would be questionable by the general public.
If I might, Mr. Chair, that's a very good point, Will, and that is kind of to wrap up a few of the things that have been talked about here. You know, we talk about the level service, level funded. Well, you know, this year started out as directed by the Board of Selectmen that it was going to be level service, and I say this year is in 21. And about halfway into the year, the state came out and started saying about, you know, level funded. And, you know, the goal was, even as Carter stated last year, to level service the budget, but to be restrictive on use. So now we have Adam presenting a budget that he's saying is, you know, level funded, level service. You know, it's up, you know, like Tony was saying last week, they're promoting it as being up 0.5%. You know, there's a few problems with that, and one is it's easy to do that if you just take things off the budget, like the sidewalk machine, and you put that in a separate article, and you take the, you know, this machine and take it off and put it in a separate article. You know, you knock off a couple $100,000 real quick. But on top of the fact that we are now actually supposed to go into a level funded budget, we're looking at, you know, cost increasing through next year, using one-time monies this year. With every response that I've received from that is hopefully we'll get more one-time monies next year.
Can't do that.
You know, that kind of sounds like an addict. You know, and we're giving out, and I you know, granted, you know, times have changed, but a 13% raise, double-digit raises, while you're using one-time funds, talking about restricting your budget, to me seems financially foolish. And that's why I just, you know, cannot support that section of the budget. I just think it's wrong. And it's unfair to the people next year who, you know, we're going to be, even tighter next year. Okay.
Just
Does anybody have anything new on the select board budget? I know a number of people have said they don't like the raises on that. Personally, I don't see an issue with them, but that's me, and that's
increased legal.
What's that?
Increased legal, isn't that on the selectmen's?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I don't have that up right in front of me, Tom, because of the Zoom bit here. Is that 125?
1 second, I'll tell you.
Oh, I thought you had it up. Sorry.
I got it in the book. I just got to flip to that section. It's 75.
75?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I'm just going to take a quick second myself here. And sorry for holding you up here. Yeah, I can't tell. All right. But we just seem to be, let's say, spending an awful lot of money on legal. We have a lot of money sitting aside in special articles for legal. We've, you know, and I just don't, let's say, tracking that stuff because it's from, let's say, multiple sources, or not sources, but because it's, you know, some are special articles, some are warrant issues, some are transfers. It makes it, let's say, difficult to get a grasp on what we're actually spending and where it's being spent from. And I'd just like some clarity on that in the future, because I think we're spending much more than has appeared, you know, represented in the presentation. Not anything that we haven't approved. I'm just saying more than what it appears in the presentation.
If I might add, Mr. Chairman, I was just looking at the final BVA and looking at something like supplies. We're asking for $500 more than last year. But guess what? There was $1,300 left over in that account last year. They only used roughly 37%, and they're asking for $500 more. Things, it just does. There's things that just do not make sense to me. That they can end up asking more than you then end up using it, and that's beside the salary. I don't know.
You also have offices that were closed some last year. Hopefully they're projecting that things will be open with the FY22. I would assume that would be make a difference also. We had quite a few departments that underspent, and due to the pandemic at the end of the year, at the end of the last fiscal year. So that would still be skewed a little bit on that budget versus actual. Hopefully next year with FY22, we won't have that.
Well, and the year before, we had the same issue. I'm looking at the end of the BVA for 18 here, and they had extra monies. You know, let me take a look at 19. I mean, I just question. This 19. Okay, let me take a look at 19. Yeah, we had roughly the same issue.
Is it, you know, is it such a huge amount that, like, how much you're talking to added an extra $500? So how much does that impact the bottom line to folks? Well,
if you look at just in 20, the leftover money was, let's see, the 25, $1,321 out of 2,000.
From last year, right? But some of the offices had closed. So, you know, I know costs are up. People are going back to offices. So, you know, I'd anticipate that they would use those office supplies. If they don't, again, it would be, you know, something that I'd like to see consistently tracked, like through the year. And then, yes, if they're constantly overspending by $1,000, maybe it's something they pull back by $500 at one point. But it's kind of hard to compare it to the last couple of years because it's been a very wonky type of year.
At least they're underspending, not overspending.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
I'd just like to point out, or my point is this, pretty much this discussion that we're having right now is, I don't know, like we're trying to divide up air. Because these numbers.
Bob, we finally agree.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Tom. Because the budget, this budget's, I think, $9.5 million. So there's $500,000 somewhere within these accounts that's designed to be there. And it's supposed to be there under the financial management policy. The thing that I've had a problem with, and that's an issue for a much bigger discussion, is why is it just thrown through the entire budget? Why isn't that 5% we're supposed to carry over? Literally do some work, create a real budget, and give me that 500,000 over in a reserve account. So I know where it is. I can see it, I can touch it, I can feel it, I can use it. Rather than, throughout a bunch of accounts that only 1-2 people know of where it is. That doesn't seem to be efficient. And we've done it for years. You look at the budgets, 18, 19, and 20. For those years, we carried half of the free cash money in insurance and benefits, and the other 250,000 or so, higher minus, 80,000 either way, in about 5 other accounts. And you can see it just by going through the quarterly reports. So, this is where I lose. And I love you, Will. I'd love to be able to do the budget the way you try to get us to do this, but this pile of numbers in front of us is a pile compared to the method that you'd like to dissect it.
Well, Bob,
Go
ahead, Bob. Go ahead, Bob.
And that's basically it. I was just saying that the detail that would be nice to be able to get, and you'd like to find, and I'd like to be able to see, just isn't there. It's, some mush here and some mush here, and it all goes together somewhat, but there's a lot of float.
I mean, literally every single line item we could review, and I can guarantee you that probably all 6 of us here tonight somebody will find something wrong with every single line item. And that's just because we're a diverse group. I think it's something that there are things that can be changed in a lot of these. Unfortunately, we could sit here and talk ourselves in circle and never really get anything accomplished with the budget, because there are things that we need to have done, but there's also things that if we keep talking ourselves in circles about something that isn't necessarily going to be changed in this budget cycle, we can see it change down the road, but as we're trying to put this budget forward, we need to somehow come together and actually put the budget forward and if there's, something that's earth-shatteringly crazy, that's our responsibility to make sure we point it out. I know Bev had brought up a number of times, putting together an office supply thing so everybody's supplies come from one spot. Unfortunately, trying to do it right before at this point wouldn't work. But in the future, that's probably a fantastic idea. So I think we're just, for us to go every line, I think, unfortunately, I think we really, as much as the detail, it's always nice to have more detail no matter what you do. But sometimes we have to move forward and try to move things forward, making sure that the major things aren't screwed up and kind of go from there, in my opinion.
I have to agree with Bob on one thing, and that's if that extra slush was, instead of being spread throughout the entire budget, was in, say, in the emergency reserve, and everybody could see it, and everybody had their budgets, and they were truly good budgets. And let me say that we wouldn't need to go through it line by line. We would know that what they are asking for is truly what they need, and not necessarily extra padded. I mean, like he pointed out, the insurance and benefits. It's been running $250,000 the last 3 years. Why? That's my question. Why? Why? And the rest of the money is, like Bob said, it's dotted throughout the entire the budget by department. If it wasn't, and if it was all in one area, we wouldn't need to take it and end up doing a line by line. We could go by department and saying, okay, everybody, let me take a look at your budget. Everything looks good. Your budget's good. I mean, it would probably be a faster process, but it's been really convoluted here by doing that.
Can I say something? Our budget has been dummied down to, whoops, am I muted? Can you hear me?
You're good.
Okay. I don't know whether I'm muted or not anyway. Our budget has been dummied down to the point of ridiculous. When Markle was here, I think he probably drove himself to drink trying to hide what, $10,000. We had 22 revisions of the budget. The budget they voted on at town meeting was not the budget that the selectmen had even approved. And guess what? The only one that knew it was Doug Morrison. You know, give us a real budget. If you want extra money, put it out there where you can see it. My problem is our budget, the school budget, using one-time money, because next year, our next fiscal year, our assessment is going to be based on that one-time money. And it is going to hurt us real bad, because no matter how much new growth we have in this town, if they bring kids in, the school sucks up more than their share, leaving the town to flounder. And until we get a good source of revenue, our ship comes in or the fairy godmother comes down, we have to be careful. And if we pass this budget, it is going to hurt us in the long run, because we have done this time and time again. I can show it to you on paper. And the selectmen we have no clue what happened, except for Jeffrey. He's the only one that has a clue what happened 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And we stay in the same damn rut. You know, it's not, what are you going to do? Say to the people we need an override? We did that one year. What was it? $1 million. We split with the school in 2003 or 4. And then the next year they needed more. There's just like never enough. And we lost Temple Stewart's, Baldwinville Products. And the light company has bailed on us. The light company they should pay a pilot. That is something the state has told us to do. And the selectmen have no clue about that, apparently. So, you know, this all adds up. It adds up to a very unstable town. And I am sick of living in an unstable town. I ain't going to have to live with it. I won't be here. This will be a shit show long after I'm gone if things don't improve. And that's the bottom line.
I think one thing that we need to realize that when we go through this budget, we're supposed to show that, you know, and point out if things are being, you know, spent wrong and or people are constantly overspending stuff, and we're responsible for looking at that kind of stuff. But who am I to say that the library's putting forward a budget that's got too much spent on books or too much on something? I don't know a darn thing about the library's budget as far as about the library. We've had to put together a group of department heads here that if you're not going to trust the employees that are putting forward the budget to at least give you some percentage of coming close to a budget, what's the point? I mean, I think we sit there and tear apart each department. I think we sit there and tear apart each department and say, oh, you know, we should be spending less on that, and we shouldn't be spending this on that. And back in 1922, we spent this on that. But sometimes we have to move forward with those departments and the department heads. If the department head's not doing their job, at that point, it's the town manager's responsibility to either discipline the town manager or bring it to the select board, however the process goes, and say, okay, you're not doing your job. You've overspent your budgets 4 years in a row. But if they're staying within their budget and the town's not bottom up it's not necessarily our job to say they need to be spending less on road patch, because I
Nobody said
don't know enough
that.
about road patch, and or that, just using that as an example. But we sit here and discuss an awful lot about things that we should be relying on some of our town employees. We have good town employees. And as far as the light department goes,
Some good
I think last year, although it may not be called a pilot, I believe they spent around $70,000 on air packs as far as in the fire department. I do not have that in front of me, so that is definitely not a quoted number from me.
70,000. Oh, that's amazing. Really?
It's better than zero.
Oh, wow. Well, hang on 1 minute, because
I mean, one year they billed us out with 150,000. They also have infrastructure stuff. It's not necessarily, again, we shouldn't be relying on the bailout. At least that something's going somewhere. I just think that we need to move forward with putting a budget forward and not necessarily be as nitpicky on a $12 item sometimes.
Excuse me.
Mr. Chairman, just to take and move things along, I'd like to take and make a motion to, on this budget, the selectmen's budget, is to approve or disapprove. I'll make a motion to take and vote on the selectmen's budget. We know there's some items that people have questioned. So the motion is to take and end up voting on the selectmen's budget, knowing that there's some issues that have to be resolved.
So just on the select board or on the entire budget, Will? What?
Well, we said we're going to go budget by budget, so let's start with the selectmen's.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
second,
Bob, go ahead.
I just got a second, that's all. Sorry.
Okay. Anything else on the selectmen's budget? Okay, Bev,
no,
Bob,
I'm trying to figure out, could I get a reread of the motion, Tom? Do we have it? Is the motion to not approve, or is the motion? Because I don't want to vote no on a no.
the motion was to approve.
Motion is to approve.
That's how I ended.
Thank you.
Amy,
Abstain.
Will,
No.
I'm a yes. Deb,
Yes. Bob, I'm sorry, what was your vote?
No,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
So it was 2 yes, 3 no, 1 abstain, so the motion did not pass.
Tom, you're on mute.
does anyone have any questions on our budget at this time?
Yeah, I'd like to see our budget changed around a little bit. I had said this earlier. I mean, the extra monies in the account, the 5,200, it to me would be better served if we're going to take and end up keeping the budget the same as it is to take and end up changing that amount for the budget to 52,700. But moving monies from accounts 5110 and 51,400 and 5,200. And not all that does is put it into the puts that into the emergency reserve, but it keeps our budget the same.
Excuse me for a second. So you're saying you'd like to move the 250 from 5,400?
No, the one. Hang on a second.
It was-
100, Bob, and 500 from the 5110. So that's 600 plus another 200, $195 from the 52, which would end up bringing our budget to 52,700.
Okay, so you're not touching the 5,400 account?
The 5,400 account is reduce it by 100, and that's historically we have had put $250 there and never used any of it. This leaves some money in it and moves it to the emergency reserve.
Thank you, Will. I just wanted to make sure we left something in there because we do use some, so just
We
wanted to
have-
make sure it was left.
Bob, we haven't used anything for supplies in the last 3 years.
Yeah, but
We could.
Oh,
Right.
no, yeah, that's 54. The 5,200 is the thing that I was talking about is for advertising the pre-town. And we already had figured out that we needed only $255, and that would take care of three times in a thing, and we only have 2 meetings coming up.
do you have a motion on that, Will?
Yeah, I made the motion to take it, end up changing the 500 from 5110, 100 from 5400, and 195 from 52 to the emergency reserve.
I'll second.
So, okay, discussion, Will, so it's not necessarily to change that, it's to request to change it, because Adam can say at this point that he does not want to change that. Correct?
That's correct. I mean, we can make, that's what we're
'Cause
proposing.
usually something like that gets happened during the budget process, not once we've been presented with a balanced budget. Or
Well, I made that statement, but nobody ended up, I mean, I discussed that at our meeting, and then I discussed it at the budget review. And nobody ended up saying anything, so I'm bringing it up now.
okay, we have a motion that's made and seconded.
The budget can be changed on the floor of the town meeting. It's not etched in concrete until people vote on it.
Any more discussion on this motion? Bev?
What? Any discussion?
The vote's to you.
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Will?
Yes.
Deb?
Abstain.
And I'm a no. Town account. Nobody has anything on accountant?
Yeah, I have a question. I don't understand under the salaries why we have a full-time accountant, assistant accountant, and there's $150 as floating hours beside. Who's it going to? If it's going to the assistant accounting, they're working full-time already. I'm not sure why there's $150 as floating hours.
I would say that it's 6 hours that's floating for the year. I would say that would be most likely either at paying the person to come to town meeting possibly, or paying the person to do something like that. It'd probably be a 6 hour day from what it looks like, or a couple evenings. That would be my guess on floating hours on that. Will? Something outside of their regularly scheduled hours, but they're not of the enough to where you're paying them overtime.
The other thing that I questioned was they had monies in the 5110, and it said boot camp and law training, if we don't have a full-time accountant, do we still need that money? Because it's a substantial amount of money. It's $4,500.
Well, I would, as far as the law training, I think that's something that would be taken anyway, no matter what. We still have somebody that's working as an accountant. As far as the boot camp, I would not exactly sure on that. Hopefully they may be figuring that during this FY22, they are going to hire an accountant. Again, without knowing exactly how they're planning to use that.
Well, the reason I brought it up, because if you look at the budget, it only calls for a part-time person in the as the accountant for the entire year. So, I mean, it doesn't look like they plan on filling that position. So why have boot camp if you're not going to have a person hired to take and end up spending the money? That's my question.
If I might, Mr. Chairman.
Certainly.
The one thing that concerns me with this budget is I think it needs to be raised for simply what's being pointed out right here. You look under jobs on the Templeton website and we have town accountant listed. But we've cut the salary in the accounting office by $15,000, I believe. I don't know how we anticipate, hiring a new accountant and paying for it.
You're right, Bob.
That's a good point, Bob, because if they do decide that they can hire an accountant, there's not going to be any money in there, and they can't come to the emergency reserve because it's salary. It's the DOR has made it really clear to advisory and finance people, you can't use emergency reserve for salary if it's not budgeted, period. I mean, I would rather see monies in this budget actually increase, like you said, to take in and end up anticipating that we're going to actually fill a position.
Either certified or certifiable person.
There's a lot of certifiable people.
Yeah,
Hello.
that's fine. That's fine. They can pass the test within 6 months.
I mean, when I was in the private sector, that's exactly the criteria that we used. And people got into it and they had a certain amount of time to get training and be proficient in the job. I mean, in this particular case, it probably won't be 6 months. It may be a couple of years, Bev, to take and end up getting the necessary training, go through boot camp to get certified. But that, if they go through and they end up doing that, and maybe you'll end up in 6 months, you see how they're performing even without going to the training to see if they're handling things. And that's probationary period. I mean, that's one of the things that we did in the private sector. You're on probation while you were in the job.
Well, if they hire someone with experience and they just don't have that much experience in municipal, but they have the basic skills, it shouldn't be real hard for them to make a change. And that's definitely, we desperately need somebody that really is certifiable, because it has cost us a fortune over the years by not having good bookkeepers. That's why we didn't do our audits for 4 years. They were such a mess. I don't have any clue how much money we lost. And then the money it cost us to try to redo our books, which was, you could never do.
Do we have anything else on the current budget wise on it though, on this?
That's a big problem.
The question I have now is, do we accept this budget without increasing it, or recommending an increase to it?
That's what I was just going to say. I was just going to I'll motion that we approve this budget with the recommendation that the town administrator look into let's say more appropriately funding it for the full-time accountant position, or should we say it to add 15,000, because that would get it back to where it was anyway.
Well, I don't know what a good accountant makes.
Are you talking the future, Bob, or are you talking for this budget?
I was thinking for this budget is the recommendation.
Yeah.
For him to, try and find it, because, we'll give him suggestions before we're done.
So basically the motion, just to try to make it a little less confusing, I just want to know if this is the same
Thank
thing
you.
you're saying. That it would be to reject the budget in front of us with the reasoning being you wanted to see 15,000 added to it.
Does the same, sure.
I'm just trying to make it so we're not kind of double negativing ourselves.
Yeah, I was trying to keep it out of the negatives altogether, trying to make it as positive as I could, but okay. Sure.
Do I have a second on that?
Second,
Any further discussion?
Tom, can you repeat the motion as you said, please?
It'd be rejecting the budget in front of it on the town accountant with the reasoning being wanting to see 15,000 more added to it.
Thank you.
Any more discussion?
No.
Okay, roll call vote. Bev,
yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Will,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
and I'm a no. Treasurer collector. Anything with the treasurer collector?
I move that we accept the budget of the treasurer collector as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
I just have one question. How come we jumped over the assessors, Tom?
Oh, my mistake. We've got the motion on that on the treasurer collector. We'll go back to the assessor.
Are we staying where we are right now?
Yeah, we'll stay with the assessor. We've got a motion made and seconded.
Does anybody know? If there's an increase in this for her?
Bev, there is, and it's stated in her contract.
Okay, all right, we're good then.
Any further discussion on the treasurer collector? Okay. Do a roll call vote. Bev,
Yes,
Bob,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Will,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay, back to the assessor. I skipped over. Anyone have any questions on the assessor? If no one's got any questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve it.
So
Quick
moved.
question. I just have a question. The deputy assessor on contract or had gotten a raise in this last year?
Well, yes, and the Board of Assessors is the party responsible for the salary of the deputy assessor. And they voted to give her an increase this year. That's just how that works.
Do you know how much it was, Tom, to take an end up? I don't want to take an end up singling. If it was,
I honestly do not, but I believe it was closer to 8%.
so it was not double digit like another department.
I do not believe so.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I believe we had a motion. Do we have a second on that?
Second,
Okay, any further discussion?
Nope.
Roll call vote. Bev?
Yes,
Bob?
yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Will?
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay. IT and communications. I believe the next one. Yes. Anyone have any questions, comments, concerns on the IT and the communications? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Just a comment. They're asking for it looks like $12,000 more than last year. Just as a note. Well, that's on the
6,500 of that's ClearGov.
oh God. Really?
say that again? Say that again?
He said that roughly 6,500 was for Clear Glove. I thought
Oh, I
so-
thought we were canning that.
I thought that was on the redo list, and they had talked about something about that. Am I mistaken, or anybody?
It is on the redo list. And it looks like he was taking it out. Right, where the heck did it go? Let's see. My favorite thing here, clear glove, where'd it go?
The only thing I actually remember being moved was the internet at Gilman Way. That was the only adjustment I actually know of on the downside. Other than that, it was just
No,
changed.
no, it's here.
Yeah,
It says, IT 5200, strip out entire line, and it's a minus $6,438. That's
That's
what we
it?
got on the due outs.
that's it.
Okay,
So the actual budget would be reduced by that amount, would it not?
sounds like it.
I see that on the redo list, but I don't see it on the list that that went out.
I know.
Yeah, like I said, as far as I know, the only thing I heard from Adam was about adjusting for the between the stipend and the raise in selectmen's budget and the internet for Gilman, that
He's got-
1,500.
Bob, he's got written here, strip out entire line.
Those were the
So-
notes from the budget hearing, but that wasn't the final document that was sent out by Adam.
Well, I think they should, because I think it's a colossal waste of money.
Could that be an oversight by Adam that it was discussed and taken out, but he didn't include that with the budget or the due out list?
Like Bob said, the only thing I see was the on the deficit side was the 1,501 taken out on the internet wise.
Yeah. So how
Don't-
would anybody be open for a motion?
Fire away.
Okay. I make a motion that we disapprove the IT budget as it sits with ClearGov included.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
If it was taken out, Bob, would your motion change?
Well, that'd be the motion he made is if with,
Yeah, I don't think so, Will.
So, so I wrote motion to reject the IT budget due to the inclusion of Clear Glove. Is that correct?
Sure.
Okay.
and Bev, you seconded that?
Yep.
Okay, do a roll call vote. Bev,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Will,
Yes.
Deb,
I'm a no.
and I'm a no. All right, next on the list, town clerk. Anybody have any issues with the town clerk? Presented budget?
I will make a motion. Oh, go ahead. I was gonna
No,
say, I'll
I-
make a motion to pass the town clerk budget.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Just a quick question. Did she, I know she was certified at one time. Is that $1,000 amount put in, is it in her budget?
I don't know.
Oh, there it is. Excuse
There
me.
is this, yes.
Yes, it is. It is. I see it. I'm sorry. CMM. See, it's the 1, 2, third line down.
Any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Bev,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Will,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes, sorry.
and I'm a yes. All right, next up, police department. Anyone have any issues on the police and dispatch budget?
Just the same question I had. And I posed that, and I don't think I really got a good answer from the police chief around that. There was a substantial amount of monies left over in this budget for salaries, and I felt that having it there was probably not appropriate.
I thought he had told us he was down an officer last year, Will.
Yeah, but they're not hiring an officer, is my understanding. So, I mean, if you have $30,000 left and you're not hiring, and your budget is actually more, then I just maybe I'm mistaken here.
I'm just looking at how he broke it down, and it's as far as salary wise, it's broke down pretty much by individuals.
Oh, I'm not questioning that. It's the amount of money that was left over. It's just, and we're not hiring, and we're actually going up on it. I don't think that if they do hire, people are going to be happy if they do hire somebody. And that's a question as to having $30,000 left in the budget, and we're at this particular point here.
Does anyone have any more questions about the police and dispatch budget?
I'd just like to point out, if I might, Mr. Chairman, that this section of the budget brought up a really interesting point for me was when we were talking about the bulletproof vests and the funding and so forth for them. And it just kind of made me curious as to how it sits with other departments. But it seems as though, with the police department, that he's able to, in a sense, with the donations that he receives, has his own reserve built in for the bulletproof vest. You know, and he's utilizing it in that way. I'm not, you know, I have two sides of me. One side is uncomfortable with that kind of isolated money, but the other side of me likes that we have the float for changing officers midstream, and without the requirement for additional funds, they can use the donation. But it just, I thought it was rather interesting how within the department, the donations from various sites and so forth end up being used as mini reserves. And that's all.
Just as a comment, and I wish the police chief, I would have preferred him to say this, is that he ended up having a couple of officers leave, and he hired to replace them, which I believe, because I see new faces, and that's why the 30,000 was there. I could understand that, but just him saying that he didn't, the money was there because they were down an officer. $30,000 isn't going to buy you an officer. I just, that's just as a comment. That's,
Okay, does anyone have anything else? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the police and dispatch budget.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any further discussion? Do a roll call vote, Bev?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Will?
yes.
Deb?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. All right, next up, fire and EMS. Anyone have anything issues with the fire and EMS budget?
Yeah, I have big concerns about this budget.
Okay,
Well, I actually have concerns about the police budget, but that's, we have a new entity that's coming in the hospital cottages. I don't know if everybody's aware of that. It's Clearbrook Treatment Center.
yep, they're already in there functioning.
Yeah, I think it's going to put some additional, require some additional resources or monies for the police as well as the fire. And the fire department is taking a big hit here from what their request is. And I'd like to see this budget actually higher than what it is. If people want ALS, we're not doing them justice. If we end up breaking it out and we see that the ambulance is not sustainable, that's one thing, and people could vote on that. But having a fire EMS, it's going to be difficult to break that out and to take it, end up providing that service, because I think there's going to be not so much the fire, but I think there's going to be more requests for the ambulance possibly to this rehab place if they have people that have issues during their rehab period. And I was talking to somebody that had been in a rehab, and unfortunately, as much as we don't see that per se because we're not there, they have friends that visit, and their temptation is satisfied, let me say, and that they could end up having the wrong type of temptation received and having a medical issue.
Mr. Chair, if I might.
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I'd like to pipe in on a couple issues here, but I'll stay with Will's course of action here initially. The new service coming into town, the only real concerns that I have are for, let's say, demands on public safety. And, you know, that's from basically people heading, because the facility is going to have a detox. One of the steadiest problems that I know of from a detox is people saying, yeah, I'll go, and then get there, and then, oh no, see you later. And I worked at Norking Hospital for a while in the early 90s. And when I did, you know, one of the, let's say, bigger complaints from the neighbors, you know, wasn't so much for the hospital itself, but was for the apparent vagrants or lost people walking up the road, because people would get there and just leave, and then they're just walking up town roads. So, you know, we were, or whoever saw them would call the police, or they'd call the ambulance, depending on their presentation. So it can draw demand on the ambulance service and the police service. But aside from that, the fire budget, I have a problem with more in setup. I have concerns and questions. You know, we spend a significant amount of money, and I just look at the numbers, and the numbers tend to lead me that we might be spending it in the wrong direction. And you know, with 710 ambulance calls, 283 fire calls, and you know, 91 of those fire calls are fire alarms, which aren't, you know, nothing. But you know, it just seems that the demand is more on the ambulance side, and the money seems to be going more towards the fire side. So, you know, I would also like us to take on as a, let's say, advisory job duty, another one of those. I think we should look into, you know, in depth, the ambulance receipts reserved, so that we can look at that, so we could actually give the townspeople a, you know, reasonable expectation of what they can expect from the paid service. You know, will it pay for an ambulance, you know, 1, 2 drivers, 3 drivers? And if you want it, the rest of it's on the taxpayer. You know, something like that, because as many things, you know, over the years, they've been sold by the salesman presenting a pitch, and not always the most accurate, or not, you know, by any fault of anybody's, but sometimes just, you know, information. And we've seen stuff like that in various degrees. You know, just an example, police station, 975,000, 2.7, you know, 2.7 million at the end, little difference. So I think we really need to look at this, because, and I'm sure Tom could tell us, we could spend 2-3 times as much on fire, and you know, they'd still want, because, you know, a lot of big dollar equipment, you know, but I think we really do need to ask, you know, do we have the right equipment? What is the right equipment? What should we be doing for the taxpayers? What's the best, you know, dollar spent for services? Do we need to look into regionalization? Does that work? You know, because we are the advisory committee, we're supposed to look out for the finances of the town. And I think it involves more than just the budget.
Yeah, I agree.
Looking how Chief Dickey had broken it out, I think kind of addresses Will's question. He had looked for basically $200,000 more for 3 1/4 people. Trying to show it here to us how what he actually needs to what he feels he needs to run the department, which I certainly don't disagree. Unfortunately, as Will pointed out, that it's one of those budgets that possibly does need to go up quite a bit, but you can't always do it all at once, and we don't always have it as a town. Again, we're, in times we're trying to, I think they put forward as much as they could on it. Bob, I think from what it looks like here on your part, as far as trying to spend more on the EMS side, I noticed that all his full-time guys he's got bringing in as paramedics now, which allow them to, you have to pay a little bit more on the end of it, but it allows them to be a dual role. They're all firefighter paramedics. So it is kind of starting to head more monies towards bringing medics in, which I know from trying to hire medics that it's tough to compete. It's a very competitive market with getting the dual rate as far as the individuals go. The equipment, you're definitely right. And a new ambulance is, they go $260,000. They used to go in the 70. So those have really gone up, as most of the any equipment that you put either fire or EMS on doubles pretty much over what it actually is. I don't think the chief would be opposed to trying to work forward as to, showing what he needs and showing how it could be presented as far as the, the ALS plan and all that. I certainly have some opinions on it. I was pretty much wrote it in the very beginning when it first came here. So I know exactly what it's supposed to be to start with. And I got no issue reviewing that. I think that's something that in the outside of the budget to going forward, that is something that is would be a good tool.
And I worked at the Protestant Youth Center for about 10 years. And the new building that this group has is actually in Winchington, not in Templeton.
Yes, it is.
But if they get in trouble, they're going to call Templeton, not Winchington. It's
On a medical, it's closer on a medical end. It's a lot closer for the patient and better for the patient care to.
Definitely. But I wonder if they had any discussion with the town. If they're nonprofit, we get another group in there that doesn't pay taxes,
I don't know. Do you know for sure that they're nonprofit? Because I know they got some pretty.
Oh, I have to check, but I know the youth center. I got to tell you, for all the years I worked there, we had very little to do with the police. Once in a while, somebody run away. He'd be looking under the bed, and he'd be in Boston already. But we really didn't use a lot of services. We very seldom had the fire department up there. The nursing home has their share of ambulance calls because that's what it is. So, it's something, I think after the first year of them being there, we'll know more how it's going to go. It depends on their security. It depends on how they run their operation, because they're not going to let people go running around loose. I mean, it's not going to be a free fall for all. They have to be a professional group. They have one running already, but it would have helped. It would seem it. I don't know if they did. If they went and talked to the people in town, the selectmen, the fire department, the police department, would have been smart for them to do that.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, the reason I brought it up was I read the article on the Clearbrook Treatment Center, and it is, they list themselves as a not-for-profit, the same as the group that's there. And the reason I brought that up about the fire EMS is, I think, because of the type of clientele is different than what we had in the PYC. We're going to have a different type of issue and a different demand on a service that the other group did not use. And if you look back, when McLean tried to come into the community, they were going to give us some mitigations. And I haven't heard of this group turning around and saying that they would end up offering some type of mitigations to help the town services that they would require when needed. And like Bob said, is if somebody leaves, it's a different type of clientele. They're going to be walking around and in that neighborhood, and that's not, that's a concern for the neighbors per se. But that road, if they need, and the reason I brought that up too was that road, that the hospital road coming from the side where the electric light company is atrocious. I mean, we could end up having the ambulance, if they had to go up that way, get damaged versus coming from the other side. And I think when they come from the for the nursing home, they come from the other side. They don't come up that road because it's so bad. If you've traveled it, it's terrible. You have to look at that road and then understand we may end up having to take and fix that road.
Well, you know what? They came in and they didn't ask first. Like they're here. So
I wish they had come in. When they had come in, they would have ended up offering to end up having that road fixed to that facility at least. That would have shown me that they're, as a nonprofit like McLean, that they're willing to end up supporting some of the town services.
I was just going to sit here and remain quiet, but I'm Bob. And the thing that is coming up here that just strikes me and really kind of on a humorous level is that a facility's coming into town, and it will increase services and it might be to Winchendon, more than Templeton, I'm not sure, being right on the border. But it will increase calls for service, and they don't get hit with a fee. But we have 3 greenhouses going up on Patriots Road behind the Muellers that most people will never even know are there, and they pay 3%.
had to
for
have
3
a public,
years
had to have a
for
public hearing.
all the use
too.
of ambulance and
Plus, we had a
police
public
and
hearing.
services they're going to use. Just kind of interesting.
How are we as far as on the budget wise? I know we've had our opinions on the facility up there, but how are we on the fire department budget? No one has anything new to add? I'll entertain a motion.
If we have a motion, could we end up making a motion to accept the fire budget as it is, but it's inadequate with that comment
Certainly.
because of the potential requirement for services? I don't know how you want to word it.
I don't know if you want to add on the services or just the inadequate as far as the budget, because I mean, it could be inadequate just because if we have multiple calls, they don't have staffing and different things either. So,
Well, that's a problem. That's a problem in itself because, as I mentioned at the meeting, people that I know, they ended up calling for an ambulance. The person was in great pain, and they only had one person to take and end up coming. And they, instead of calling Woods right away, they waited almost quite a bit of time before they ended up calling. And when they only have one person, it should have been automatic to have Woods come.
well, there is a certain period of time that the state has us, wait for, especially with the call department. That's where, and I think that's where Chief Dickey was trying to go with adding additional paramedics on shift. There's as far as wait time on a call, we used to be all call. I think that's where he was trying to add, looking to add people to try to solve that. But again, as you put it, it's an inadequate amount, but it's the budget that we've got here before us without adding 200,000 to it.
Will, why don't we wait until next year and see how things go? We'll have a good year's worth of dealing with people up there to know where we're coming from. I mean, really, where's the money gonna come from?
Let me change that motion, Mr. Chairman, to end
Go
up saying that it's inadequate and that we are recommending that the budget be broken out for fire and EMS separately for next year.
Okay, do we still want to pass this? Are you looking to still pass this budget or against this budget? Just so we know.
Against this budget as inadequate, and also looking at next year as to break it out as the fire and EMS.
So you want to reject this budget due to inadequacy?
But no, Will, it's not inadequate. He can live with this budget right now. We don't know if it's inadequate because we don't know what's going to happen this year. We're guessing. We don't have any facts. After the year is over, when he can look at what kind of problems he had, if he had any, we don't even know. As far as I'm concerned, this is an adequate budget to get him through the year. If we need more money, where in the devil is it coming from?
You have a point there, Bob, and I just, it
You
just
know, I
seems,
understand it's emotion, but facts are he can live with this budget. He will know by next year what kind of shape he's in.
I'll withdraw any motion that I had and let somebody else make a motion.
I make a motion that we pass this budget and we will see where we are at next year. And then they can make adjustments.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Bev?
Yes.
Bob?
No.
Amy?
Yes.
Will?
No,
Deb?
Yes.
And I'm a yes.
Before you move to the next budget, can I ask, is the intent to go through all of them tonight, or are we able to break them up? It's just looking at the time and knowing we have a couple of
Yeah.
other things that are on the agenda. I don't know if we can hold some of them to the next meeting.
You're not a retired girl yet?
No, I'm like, I gotta get the kids up for school, get to work.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to take it and up recommended that we go along with what Bob said. And next Tuesday, we end up coming back and finishing this up. Because at our regular meeting later on this month, we're going to have to take and end up starting to read the warrant articles and to take and end up getting some as to the final warrant articles, because the selectmen will be passing that next Wednesday, because the bylaw calls for us to have the warrant by the 10th of April. Used to be March 20th, but that's beside the point. And we would need to take and end up at least looking at the warrant, because we don't know if it's going to change or not. And we should at least go through it at that particular time later on the month, and at least get the budget portion out of the way with our recommendations, and then hit the warrant later on. That's just my thoughts.
Sounds good to me.
I got no issue with scheduling a meeting seeing if we can schedule a meeting on Tuesday. I cannot make it, but I certainly have no problem scheduling the meeting.
Okay.
Or at least making sure that TCTV can schedule that.
I mean, I can keep going. I certainly don't want to be the person that makes us stop now. I'll keep going.
No, I get no issue with that at all.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman?
Sure, go ahead, Bob.
How about I just make a motion that we stop the budget review after the fire department vote, and we'll reconvene for the balance of the budget at the next meeting of the advisory committee on,
April 6th.
yeah, April 6th at 6:30.
I'll second that.
Okay, any more discussion on that? Bev,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Will,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
and I'll be a yes on that.
Good suggestion, Deb.
Thank you.
It's a long day when you get up early.
Next up on the agenda was upcoming budget dates, just to discuss. You guys we'll schedule that meeting for the 6th, see if it's available. After that, we do have one on I believe I don't have a date in front of me.
15th.
Yeah, the 15th. And I believe we should have the warrant to us by then, correct? Final vote on the warrant is Wednesday, the 14th unless they've moved that date.
The warrant has to be done by the selectmen next Wednesday on the 7th.
Okay, I see on the calendar they're taking the final vote on the warrant on the 14th. Unless that's changed. It shows that their warrant is the ending warrant articles, and that's the deadline to transmit warrant articles.
Mr. Chairman, that has to be done because the bylaw calls for them to have it to us on the 10th. Oh, the select board, let me just take a look. The select board approved final annual town meeting warrant is on the agenda for next week.
Okay. So we'll have it. We should have it by our meeting on the 15th. So that'll be good on that. Looking for target date on our pre-town meeting. Does anyone have any suggestions? I know that we have a 29th. We have is a 5th Thursday this month. Do we want to do it on the 29th?
Sounds all right to me. Sounds good to me.
That way we've done ahead of time and we get it done. And
you're talking about April 29th. That's a Thursday.
yes, that's we do have a scheduled one. So
Because we
do have the 6th scheduled. So when we could do it the 6th, I don't know where that falls. That's kind of calling it close, I think.
well, it does as far as you want. If you have to take and end up getting it to the selectmen, but the actual bylaw calls for us to have our recommendations at least 2 days before annual town meeting, and that would suffice because annual town meeting is on the 11th. Would we not end up having, if we did it on in April on the 29th, would we still have a meeting on the 6th?
At this point, I can't say. I guess we'd have to see how the 29th meeting went. I guess no, but I don't want to be saying. We'd kind of have to see where the 29th would go.
I'll make a recommendation. We have the pre-town meeting on the 29th with the notification for the pre-town meeting being in the Garden News on April 24th. That's a Saturday.
A second.
Second.
Any other discussion? Say none, Bev,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Will,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. And Deb, I'll get together with you on the notification posting.
Okay, thank you.
And
All right.
just as a reference to what was spoken of, if there is an option on the 6th, if we have the 29th, I would not be opposed to canceling the 6th.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I would be leaning to, but it just, we'll have to just kind of go with the win, but I kind of agree with you there, Bob.
Oh, you should
Understood. Thank
just
you.
leave it in reserve until, I mean, if something comes up, it comes up, because you're at this particular point, you could have an end of year transfer, which we might have to take and end up addressing on the 6th, Bob. Don't know.
We'll potentially would flip it, but at this point, we'll leave it till at least till the 29th and see what's what at that point.
I leave it up to the call of the chair, depending on if we have an end of the year transfer.
Okay. Next up is discuss the advisory committee Facebook page, which up until a couple weeks ago, I didn't know we had.
We have one.
Oh, yay. What?
So we had asked, I can't remember when we opened it up, but I believe myself, Amy, I believe is an administrator, and Tony DeJoy is an administrator on it. So we can basically put it up only for purposes of sharing information. So we can put up like the advisory committee's pre-town meeting will be held on this date, or here are the notes. Most of the time we're sharing items that TCTV posts, or things like that. So it's not necessarily meant to be any type of official communication or an official means for people to contact us. And the only reason I'm bringing it up, or asked Tom to throw it on the agenda, was we received a message from Scott Dill. I see that. So whenever someone leaves a message through Facebook Messenger, the administrators get a message that there is a message there and to go to retrieve it. So I saw it and forwarded it to all of you. But one of the select board members had seen that the email address that was listed under the contact information was incorrect. And I have corrected that, I believe. So I double checked, but again, if you're out there and you see it and it's still wrong, please let me know. But again, it's not really meant as an official means of communication. Contacting us, people should still use the town website.
My only comment is we got to be very careful, because one of the entities in the town created a potential ethics issue by what was posted. So I mean, we got to be very, very careful on whatever's on that page. When it came up, I was not necessarily one that wanted to take and end up seeing Facebook as a separate entity from us, because we do have a wedge page, and I would hope people would go there before they would go to a Facebook.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
I'm one of those people that doesn't participate in Facebook, not a social media guy, imagine that. And I don't like the idea at all of a town website, whether it be informational or not, but one that, as proven by Scott Dill replying to it, that the townspeople seem to think is a communication with the advisory committee, that requires a member to sign up to a private party's website. I just don't think that's right, personally. I also don't like Unipay. I've used it, but I don't like it for that reason. But I have a problem with that, with the Facebook pages in general, because if you're not a member, you can't view them, and you can't view even just informational stuff that other committees are putting up, unless you sign in or you want to put up with a nuisance banner on their page or whatever the deal is. And yeah, the email address is correct, Deb. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can see no point in having a Facebook page, but I'm an old lady, so that's the way it is. I think that all of our information should be on the town website. That should be where people go to find correct information. Praise be the Lord if it's ever correct. It would be good, because that, I think, that's why I don't care for ClearGov. You can, any information you need, you can go to the state website. We could always put that on so that people could go there. And I think that would be adequate. I think it just gets whatever. But if you want to take care of the thing, go ahead, be my guest, because I don't intend to.
Okay, does anyone have anything else on discuss on the Facebook page?
Just a question, is that going to be continued, or is that the consensus that maybe it's no longer viable?
I don't think you can kill them.
You can shut it off. I don't think they ever truly go away, but we can shut it off so that, it's not posting or anything like that anymore. It'd just be dormant and stop, like it would just end.
Or does it just become another ghost Templeton.org, Templeton1.org, the ghost site?
I don't think so. Like, I think you would be able to search it. I would have to do a little homework on that.
I know how to do it, Deb. You can unpublish it, and it basically, you have to make it dormant for 14 days, but then you can unpublish it and it fully disappears. Because it's a page, people just follow it or like it. There's no members per se. It's not a group. So they're actually pretty simple to shut down.
Okay.
We can do that. I think the intent behind starting it, Mike Curry was the one who started it when he was chair of this committee. And the intent was, people are on Facebook. We want to drive them to the website. We're not getting traffic on our website. Why not find them where they're at? And Facebook was something at the time we were all familiar with. So, just comfortable using it. So why not continue using it? I hear what everyone's saying. We need to have the information on the website, and that should be made available. But if people are being on the Facebook, then it doesn't hurt, in my opinion, to have a spot where if they find us, we can direct them to our website, direct us to our. I think Mr. Dill's email was the first time in almost 3 years that we've ever gotten, like, quote, official communication through Facebook. And in my opinion, that's a short sight on Mr. Dill's behalf, because no one uses Facebook for official anything. No town entity, no state entity uses Facebook as anything official. So I'm sure now he understands, and everybody else, that you got to use the regular Templeton.gov emails. But we certainly could shut it off. I mean, is someone looking for a motion for that?
Let me ask you a question. You seem to know quite a bit, Amy. Is there a way to take and track how many times people go to it?
No, because it's something people can either like or follow. We can see how many people give that page a like or how many people follow the page. But honestly, speaking personally, because I'm one of the admins on the page, we really just put up annual town meeting. We put up, anything that we feel like we really need to push a little further into that social space. And Faith Curcio, who used to be on this committee as well, helps push that forward. She runs a couple other town pages, and she really just helps circulate information so that people who are looking for it on Facebook can find it. There's no official count, like I said, because it's not a group, and we have it set up so not anybody else can post to that page unless we give permission. So they can't just be putting their garbage on that page and pushing whatever agenda they want. And it's very clean and official. You know what I mean? Like, we don't share our random thoughts over there.
It's not hurting anything, that's for sure.
Is it
Right? And very few people actually know it exists.
Well, that was my next question, was how effective is this thing? If I know what the possible intent was, but if it's not being effective, then it's up. I don't know. Do we still
I don't care.
co-
Don't bother me.
commit to
Yeah,
that?
but if it gets 2 extra people there, then it was effective.
Does it get
It's-
anybody?
Yeah, we get every once in a while we'll get a new like. I mean it's a slow moving page for sure. It's not like we have 100 people following it or crazy amounts of people following it. But every once in a while we do get a new like based off of like if I share or Tony shares something that's happening in town or something that Templeton Community or TCTV has shared.
Leave it there then. It's not hurting anybody.
Since I'm the guy who was bitching here, excuse my French, but I'll just say, I mean, I don't mind the page per se, as long as, like Amy was saying, people are on Facebook. So as long as it links Facebook to us rather than us to Facebook, if you follow my drift there, if it's bringing them to us, that's good. If it's taking us from here, that's not what I want. And I think now that we have the email address up, that facilitates that, bringing them to us even more. I don't know if this, let's see here. I'm going to try this. Oh, that's not going. All right. This at Templeton AC, is that a viable link? Says search for at Templeton AC on Facebook or Messenger.
Maybe we can have like Deb or Amy or Tony to just kind of go through and make sure our links are correct and just kind of make sure I don't say spruce it up, but make sure everything's correct on it and links to the right places. And
yeah. That would be a big plus, because if it brings people to us, great. Like you said, more faces, more eyes. But somebody's got to make sure that it is giving the right information, and not being a town site. It's kind of tough just to put it on volunteers. Hey, in your time off, remember this.
Yeah, if it does a pointer to the town website, that's a good part of it.
Yeah.
all right.
Well, thank you, Deb, for that. Thank you, Amy, for the information. Miles ahead of me on this stuff.
All right. Next up on our agenda, we got the weekly reports of 318 and 325 that were sent out. Anyone have any questions, comments, concerns? I think it's great information to keep getting out. Enjoy reading them.
I read them every week when they're put out, because I go on just to see if there's any major items that were not discussed or in between the selectmen's meetings. I don't know how effective it is to have us bring it up here as an agenda item, but I mean, we should all be looking at that per se on a weekly basis. And maybe if we do see something that would spark an agenda item, we should bring that up instead of the whole weekly report. That's just my thought.
Okay. Nobody has anything else on those? Next up, committee member comments. Bev?
I thought this was a good meeting. I think a part of what I try to do is to inform people so they have a little understanding of what's going on. And I want them to come to town meeting. It's important. It's their money. And they need to appreciate what you can get done at groups like this. I thought this was a very, very good meeting, and I appreciate your patience with me. That's it.
Okay,
Chrissy
Bob?
got her hair- Chrissy got her haircut today. Come here, come here, come here. Up, up.
Where's Chrissy?
Aw,
no, I
she's
just-
cute.
I just wanted to quickly say that I thought the meeting went really well. Glad we went through it. I'm looking forward to actually looking into a couple items in more detail in the future here for budget purposes, because I think we get into this too often where at budget season, everybody's, okay, we're looking at the budget. That's what we do. We look at the budget, we go through it. Well, this isn't really the time we should be doing this. But then after budget season, everybody's just glad it's over. And that's not the time they want to, bring up these other things on the budget either. And then the next thing you know, it's budget season again, and we never looked at them. And that's what I think we need to avoid doing, because that's not how we fix problems, by looking the other way. So with that, thank you much, and have a good night.
All right. Thank you, Bob. Amy, do you have anything?
No, I don't have anything else. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, Will?
Well, we know that there's not necessarily this budget without any issues per se. And I have to agree with Bob. The more effective communities actually start their budgeting process in October, November timeframe. And it's more inclusive. They end up digging into it much better, and they start the budget process. And the actual really effective communities, actually sometimes they actually have the school budgets by January, and they're being reviewed by their finance committees. There's some finance committees, believe it or not, depends on the community, as much as 15 to 25 people. In a community our size, we used to have that. We don't have that anymore. But I mean, we need to end up getting a better process. We've made some changes, yes, but we have to get better at this. And there's issues within the budget. And what we've talked about is having some of this monies segregated and not necessarily embedded in different departments, and have it segregated so people can actually see it and have a better budget process, and not put monies in there. They can end up having a whole bunch of monies come up for free cash.
Oh, okay, thank you, Will. Deb, do you have anything?
Hi, I wanted to acknowledge one comment. Scott Dilla is watching on YouTube, and he mentioned that he didn't realize that not everybody was an admin. So just acknowledge that, yes, he will make sure to use our email going forward. But, we'll make that clear somehow to people who follow the page, that the correct way to contact us is via email, just so everybody understands that. So thank you, Scott, for that comment. And otherwise, I have nothing else. Thank you.
Just one question, Deb. Has anybody been asking any questions? You usually see who's on and watching the meetings. Is there anybody on?
So I can't see who's on until they comment, so I can just see how many people are watching. So of course, one of them is me. So it's 10. There's 10 people. Of course, if anybody else on here is watching on YouTube too, you count as one. But otherwise, no one has commented this evening. It's been very quiet.
So if somebody's watching it on the TV per se, because I watched the selectmen's meeting, it shows up as a viewer.
I think that would probably be more of a question for Steve Castle. I don't know. I'm assuming that the number of people I'm seeing are people who are logged in watching on YouTube. I don't think I'm seeing anybody that's watching from home on television.
Well, I mean, through YouTube, because I ended up getting into the selectman's office. That's why I mean, the selectman's meeting. That's why I asked. And I don't know if they see that as a person that's watching the meeting or not. That's just a general question.
Yeah, I don't think so, but yeah, again, maybe somebody from IT can help.
All right. Well,
But that's it from me.
okay.
Okay, and I have nothing. Thank you all for coming this evening. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll
So
second
moved.
it.
Okay, made and seconded. Bev,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Will,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Have a good night.